Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Advanced Adventure podcast. And I'm the host of the show, Sonal Shah, and I'm thrilled to introduce our esteemed guest for today's beautiful episode. That is Max Schleser. Max is an accomplished filmmaker and academic with an impressive array of credentials. So, Max expertise span across immersive media and creative arts with a particular focus on cinematic VR, and interactive filmmaking. And Max is an award-winning filmmaker whose experimental films, moving image parts, and cinematic VR projects have been showcased at renowned film festivals and prestigious galleries and museums worldwide. The most name that we can see is a Flip Film Festival in the USA, Festival de Legam in Colombia, and Museu de Image so in Brazil, among many others. In addition to his filmmaking, Max has also co-edited influential book in many of the tech like mobile media making in an age of smartphones and mobile story making in an age of smartphones. And he has also edited journals for Ubiquity, the Journal of Pervasive Media, and the Journal of Creative Technology. So today we are very fortunate to have Max with us to explore the fascinating world of smartphone filmmaking and the latest trends and technologies in immersive media and how we can leverage the smartphone to create compelling visual stories. So, my dear audience, please join me in welcoming Max Schleser to the Advanced Adventure podcast. And Max, we are really grateful to have you today with us. So, thank you so much for honoring us with your presence. Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
That's a great. So, Max, you wear many hats in the film and media world, and you are not just only a professor or a researcher, but also the founder of a mobile innovation network and associations that called MINA. So, may I ask you that can you start your introductions with a bit about MINA as well as its significance in the realm of smartphone filmmaking?
Yeah, sure. And thanks for the really nice introduction. MINA, the Mobile Innovation Network and Association, started 11 years ago. And the idea was really to bring smartphone filmmakers together and not only have a screening, but also have a discussion around what at that time mobile phone filmmaking or no smartphone filmmaking is. And so over the last years, you have of course seen like various amounts of changes in the ideas, the perceptions, the understanding, and as well as technology in what used to be mobile phone filmmaking, what is now smartphone filmmaking. And MINA was always about building a bit of a community around smartphone filmmaking or mobile filmmaking. And so the idea is also to get people together that are really passionate about this and showcase some of the latest developments in smartphone filmmaking, the new directions that it's taking. But also we are very interested as MINA to really showcase some projects, some films, so some short films, some experimental screen productions and documentaries that might have not been shown at other film festivals. So we take a very bold curatorial approach. We're really interested in creative ideas related to storytelling, community engaged projects, and also sometimes aesthetic explorations. And for us, smartphone filmmaking or mobile filmmaking was always something that is very much in the innovation space. And that sort of, I think, results from the idea that the very first mobile phone filmmakers, which I also wrote about in the book, Smartphone Filmmaking, Theory and Practice, they were working with a camera that the industry didn't think about as a camera. And so over the last years, of course, lots of, new technological innovations happen, but we are really interested to see what is the application. So, in 2017, we introduced drone filmmaking. In 2018, we introduced mobile cinematic VR. And at the moment, we're trialing a vertical video category. And we also, in the creative category, introduced the idea of mobile AI applications. And so for us, the interesting thing is that nowadays with a smartphone, we can do the work that you can produce in an industry context, but you can also do other things. And so we really want to give some space for the exploration of some of these new ideas. MINA has been running for the last 13 years, and it has started in New Zealand, Aotearoa, then it moved to Melbourne, Australia, But we also have a screening in China this year. And in the past, we also had some other screenings at other festivals. And a new addition is also our online screening platform, which is called MINA Vault. And so it's a platform that is based on a Web3 idea, and that is a way for us to showcase some of the films. If you couldn't make it to the screening in Melbourne at ACME or to the screening in China in Ningbo, that there's an online way that you can see some of these films.
That's a great, wonderful journey you have traveled, Max. And it's a really honor for us that today you are here to share your learnings and journey with us. Thank you so much, Max. So, Max, with these insightful discussions and introductions, I would also like to introduce my own organization. So, if you permit, I would like to give a brief introductions about the Adfartech Venture.
Sure.
Just a few quick words on the Adfartech. As I said in the advanced beginning also, that we are IT and the tech platform with the focus on IT solutions, IT resources, recruitments, and this tech audio podcast. And we have vendor alliances with the 50 plus tech partners, including SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, Pega, OutSystem, then Appians, Salesforce, Cloudera, Informatica, and many such more too. And we provide almost all the kinds of key solutions, which includes ERP, application development, then data, then AI/ML, blockchain, cloud, managed services, UX UI testing, and the cybersecurity too. And the major skills which we have is we have resources basis of 20,000 plus all across the skills. So we can deliver both on-site and offshore within 24 hours all across the world. So at Adfar, we just like to, listen the views of visionary tech leaders. And equally, we are super impressed with your bio also and experience that, you are into something new, exciting technology into the mobile filmmaking. So with these podcasts, we learn to know more about your journey, your views on latest tech innovations, and other valuable insights that our audience will be enriched with the knowledge. So this is all about the Adfartech Venture podcast and the motto behind the Adfartech Venture podcast. So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity for these wonderful collaborations, and I'm really grateful to have you today. Thank you so much.
Sounds great.
Yes, that's thank you so much. So, Max, as if we had, decided to have some question and answers about your latest tools and technologies and the innovations in the mobile filmmaking. My first question that goes to emerging trends in smartphone filmmaking. So, can you share some of the latest trends and development in the field of smartphone filmmaking, please?
So I think the most interesting thing to consider is that smartphone filmmaking has various different approaches these days. So of course you can think about this as a tool that is used in the film industry. So Steven Soderbergh made a insane $2 million budget Hollywood production, which he shot on the same camera that most of the viewers, listeners probably have in their pocket, an iPhone. We can see there's some other great films that were produced in industry context. So Sean Baker made the film Tangerine. Sean Baker was recently awarded with the Cannes Prize, and not for a smartphone film, but I think it sort of shows that smartphone filmmaking is also a really great opportunity to make a film, an independent film, with maybe of a lower budget. Something that I wrote about in the book, Smartphone Filmmaking, Serial Practices, which is really interesting to notice, that in the past we had lots of writer-directors. So directors that write their own stories, they script them, and then they produce them, and they work with producers and they direct their own stories. What we can see now, there is a few filmmakers that are cinematographer directors. So they maybe take someone else's story, but they not only do the directing on set, but they also do the cinematography. So like Sean Baker was one example of this, very much as similar to Steven Soderbergh. And I've mentioned a few others in my book. And so I think that is showing us that in the film industry itself, some of the production processes are like changing and are like updated through the potential of the mobile camera, which of course it means it's a lot more fast. You can sort of be more spontaneous, and you can sort of be closer to what the directors probably want to see in their vision. There's of course another area which is very broad, which is some people call it mobile journalism, mobile journalism. So in the BBC trains lots of their journalists these days in smartphone filmmaking. So you've got like a one-woman, one-man crew being out and about. And so that is another area that is, of course, becoming very interesting. You can see, I think, lots of applications of smartphone filmmaking in industry contexts or in community contexts. So whether this is upskilling digital literacies, providing toolkits, but also having an opportunity to give a voice to community is really, really key. So to give you one example, I was working on a big project where we developed energy literacies. And we sort of very much used smartphone filmmaking as a key approach in this to, on one side, produce some explainer videos so that community gets better understanding about what energy choices they have. But then we also ran workshops with local schools to create some mobile stories in the schools where the pupils use smartphone filmmaking. And of course, another really big area that we have to talk about in a way, or we shouldn't forget, is that there is now a really emerging field of what happens on the social media platforms. So whether this is TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, there is some smartphone filmmakers that are sharing their stories, their short films, their screen productions. And of course, that is an area that is similar but different to areas as well. And so I think that is one of the really great opportunities for, on one side, smartphone filmmakers or emerging filmmakers, that you've got not just only one thing that you can do, but there's lots of different other possibilities to, in a way, produce work. But I think there's also great opportunities for community groups, NGOs, but also for organizations. So if you think about the idea of enterprise or visual communication. So at MINA, we also have a new category this year, which is called Smart Communication and Branding, Storytelling and Enterprise. And of course, that is a part of how storytelling can be used to shape certain ideas and different, stories about an enterprise that is key to tell to their audiences or maybe even employees, so that what I'm trying to say is there's not just one quick answer where we can go for it. It really depends on the context where it's applied. But I think the great thing to see is that there is very much a diversity. There's very an agile way, and there's very this idea of mobile is that it's can be adjusted to whatever the project needs to be. And I think the great thing is that storytelling sits in the center of it.
Yes, I think that nowadays the storytelling is becoming the major part of, of your skills to enhance your business process in terms of branding or in terms of, the way you showcase your business to others. So that is the major skills that people must pursue.
Yes. And I think there is, of course, like we talked before, there is a very much traditional storytelling, but there is also screen storytelling and some very new avenues. And I think one thing that is really exciting is to also think about the idea of using creativity and storytelling as a form of engagement. So that is, you're not only having audiences as a passive receiver who watch things on YouTube or in the cinema or on whatever device they are, but through everyone having a mobile phone or a smartphone, there is opportunity to think about co-created stories, participatory projects, and that of course depends very much on the story that is to be told. It depends on the frameworks and the timelines, but there is some really good opportunities to engage what we used to call audiences into the process and create stories with or for or by various community groups.
So that's wonderful answer that you have shared. about the trends and the things which are going right now. So, Max, if you don't mind, can you share what are the essential tools and apps that aspiring smartphone filmmakers should be aware of that you are using for your creations, as well as the people must know about that?
So what I always like to say, we have the whole spectrum from rookie to professional. And so if you are starting as a rookie, and even if you don't have a smartphone yourself, one of your friends will have a smartphone. And then you might be another friend and you can use that smartphone as a microphone. Well, we need some friends to help you out with the filming, and that way you can really scale it up. If you are, for instance, a videographer or a photographer, and you got you've made some other films before, and you got some knowledge on video production, photography, and filmmaking generally, there's a few really good applications that can really push the smartphone to the next level. And so, for instance, my favorite application for photography for myself is the Filmmaking. I've been using them for a long time. And the Filmmaking, we get the full control over the creative process in the cinematography. So anything that you would remember from a DSLR camera or from any other video camcorder, which is to control the ISO, the shutter speed, manual focus, you can do this on the smartphone. And so that, of course, is quite important if you're out and about and you think about the lighting situation. So you can set the white balance, but also if you're filming in a dark environment, if you understand how the ISO operates, you will always be able to get very good footage with a smartphone. There's, of course, some different other apps that have appeared that sort of do similar things. So Filmmaking.pro is available for Android as well as iPhone. They have got also an emulator app that shows which Android devices can run Filmmaking.pro. Blackmagic camera app was just launched for the iPhone at the big conference in Las Vegas. It was also, I think, talked about that an Android version will be coming out very soon. So, and that is again another from the big camera manufacturer, Blackmagic Design, the way that you can control all these things that you can control with Filmmaking.pro. Most people don't know that the editing app, Adobe Rush, also has a manual camera app. And so that is another really interesting opportunity. And again, Adobe Rush runs on a few Android as well as iPhone devices. And it brings you to the next thing, which I think is depending on what your project is about. If you are producing a short mobile journalism story that is, 2 to 5 minutes, if you produce a community project with an NGO or a local community group that is in similar time frame, or if you just want to make a short film or like a screen production for Instagram, you can edit these days on most mobile devices, smartphones, tablets. And so depending on your previous experience and depending on how complex some editing ideas are, like I said, you can work with Adobe Rush, which I think is very interesting because you can work multi-platforms. That means you can start editing on your iPhone, and then when you get an iPad available, you can edit the same project on an iPad, or you can edit it on your desktop. So, and the other thing you can do with Adobe Rush is you can open Adobe Rush projects in Premiere Pro. So, which is of course I always like to call bigger brother or bigger sister of Adobe Rush. So if you wanted to work if you want to have all availability, all the functionality that sort of Premiere Pro as a professional video software offers you. So if you needed to do some, you can do some color correction, of course, in Rush, but not to the same extent, So that is, I think, is a great way that you can start some projects in Rush and then take them to Premiere Pro. But of course, there's some other applications. Lots of young people these days, they of course are on TikTok and they work with CapCut, which is the video editor of TikTok. And we have worked with them in some workshops, and that is for a short project. There's some capacity in there which is free to use. That is, and one advantage maybe to get things done. There's another video editor which is called Luma Fusion, and that is also I've used it myself as I guess an iPad is maybe sometimes a bit easier than an iPhone because you've got a bit more screen space, so to say. But it provides you for a short for a short film all the things you really need to have. So it's very sophisticated in that respect. The thing that we also need to talk, of course, about, which is very important, is sound. And so having a very good audio recording is, as we're talking about podcasts, you will know all these things.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Then, of course, there is some great microphones these days that you can connect to any smartphone. And so lots of people really like to use wireless microphones these days. So like, for instance, the Rode Wireless Go, but there's, of course, lots of different other ones. Even if you have some microphones from broadcasting days or from film production days, or if you buy a very good, brand microphone, you can connect XLR microphones with an adapter to a smartphone. So these are like these professional connectors with the 3 dots. They're a bit bigger, but you can connect them with adapters these days to the smartphone. If you don't have any microphone available, it might be an idea to use the headphones from the Apple iPhones. They have a small microphone. You just need to be ensuring that you're as close as possible to the sound source. And that is very important for all kinds of different stories, all kinds of different production approaches. So whether you're working with narrative, drama, documentary, or experimental. But of course, the iPhone also has very good sound recording functionality. So whether you just use the thing like a voice memo app, or whether you use a Rode recorder, which is a free app, you can use the iPhone also for sound recordings in a very good way. And so if you don't have a second microphone available, I will just use another iPhone and then match this in the editing process. And I mean, you can sort of stack this up. The next thing that is maybe quite important is always to consider lighting. And so if you can film in the, out and about, if you can film during the daytime on location, outdoor lighting is, of course, very good as long as you keep the sun behind you. I think this is the way you receive the most aesthetic, interesting images with an iPhone. Of course, if you're filming in a dark environment or if you're filming indoors, there's a number of different small lighting sets, lighting LED lights that are available. And that, again, is a thing that depends on your budget, and it depends on how much you know about lighting. Again, if you don't have any lights available, you might just want to use someone else's iPhone that has a Mac light function. So there's various different levels, like I say, from rookie to pro. The new iPhones, of course, have various different lens functionalities, which is also a nice way to work. But there's also some other lenses that are very well known in the smartphone filmmaking community. So Moonbrook Labs has an anamorphic adapter. If you're really going for the cinematic look, it depends where you're filming. If you're filming in a very bright environment, it might be an idea to have some ND filters, so natural density filters that you can match, that you can click onto your smartphone, so to say. There's also circular polarized filters, so these CPL filters if you have like less reflections. So, but again, these sort of things really depend on your budget, your skill set. If you're doing a short project for the first time, you might not need this. But if you're working in a professional environment where there's certain expectations, all these things are all possible to do with a smartphone. Some other things to consider as well is that if you're working with an app like Filmmaking.pro or Blackmagic, you can of course also change the video resolution. So you can film up to 4K these days. And that can be quite interesting then if you are editing the video even only in 2K, because that means you get more information. You can bump up the bit rates if you have the space on your phone and the post-production facilities. But you can also work with these lookup tables. And there is a great app called software called Film Convert. And that means you can then color match the iPhone. And so there's also some great opportunities, for instance, to color match the footage of an iPhone to a different camera. Because sometimes you might not want to work with an ARRI camera or a big Blackmagic camera on location. So you can do this with an iPhone and then color match the iPhone footage to what the other cameras are. Because the advantage of the smartphone is that it's very mobile. You can film in various places that you probably couldn't film with another camera, in terms of mobility, moving fast. And I think there's some really great advantages to consider how we really use the smartphone when we are out and about filming. And so having the capacity of these NUTs also is an opportunity for, let's say, more professional workflows, because then, of course, you need to understand how the color correction works in the editing process or post-production, if you want to call it so. So that's what I'm trying to say. You've got the whole spectrum from rookie to pro, and that I think is one of the really exciting things about smartphone filmmaking.
That's very interesting and very insightful answer with the all spectrum of, the mobile editing for film you have described. So thank you so much, Max, for this wonderful answer that you have given. And I think this might be very useful for all the people, not only just a filmmaker, but the people, those who are using, their own videos also to brand their presence or to showcase their skills and expertise with the audience they have. So that's a wonderful answer. So Max, my next question is I say that I'm not sure that whether you are working alone or you have a team. So as a, the pro in this industry, what are the specific tech skills do you look for when you have a team or a colleague or you would like to have in your, the partner? Because all the skills will never be taught by anyone or never be present in any of the one person. So what the things you look for where, hiring for the team people?
I mean, it really depends on every project, because I think every project has certain specifications. So it means
skill-based requirement. I can say that's totally skill-based because the applications that the tool you have described is, I know it's very much required the specific skills to edit the video to make it video or voicing smooth. So how do you analyze these people that they are good to go?
I mean, in most of my projects, I sort of normally think about the people that I work with really as collaborators. And so I always work with people that bring certain expertise to the project that benefit the project and the creative process. So by let's say it that way, that the music or sound is not one of my best skills. And so that's why I normally really like to enjoy working with some music producers, sound designers that complement my skill set. And I think the idea there is always to find someone that really appreciates the work that you have done. And if you can find someone that I appreciate their work in terms of finding it interesting, aesthetically, but also conceptually, I think that is very much a good match for working with collaborators. If I work with different other bigger crew environments, I think the key thing for me is that, there's a big interest of those who work with me in the project. And I think through passion for a particular project, you can then teach people particular skills, and you can teach, what is required. But if the interest in the project is lacking, then sort of it becomes difficult to sort of really accelerate. But I think the really great thing about smartphone filmmaking is that depending on the scale of your project, there's really good opportunities also to train those who might need a little bit more skills, and then they can become really great co-producers or co-creators. And so I run lots of workshops for various different environments, organizations. So whether it's a community groups working with teenagers to We've done workshops for senior citizens, and taught them how to work with some iPads to create some digital stories that help them to be aware about the environment and make connections among senior citizens, to working for industry professionals at the film festivals, documentary festivals. I've run some workshops for professional photographers who want to get into video productions. And so it really depends always on the skill set that is existing. And then with a few workshops, you can really upskill. But also for organizations, these are like some really fantastic opportunities, because through upskilling and through embracing digital literacies, there's great opportunities. I think it's an old saying that sometimes, a picture says more than 1,000 words. And so rather than describing an issue that you see or a scenario or an environment, if you can make a short video and produce this as a part of a documentation or an analysis, that of course is a very rich resource. In the same way, interviewing certain people will really provide some really great rich insights into their environments, into the way the body language, and sort of really seeing a bit more what the experience of these different peoples or environments are. And so I think with some workshops, these sort of things can be done and everyone can learn this.
Yes, that's a great thing. So you are leading all the way to, make the team greater, as well as the other photographer makes their film greater. So, Max, can you tell us something about this latest trends in immersive media and cinematic VR influencing this nowadays smartphone filmmaking? So some lights on that.
When the first 360 video cameras, these omnidirectional video cameras, came like before the pandemic, there were like various different companies launching various different cameras. I think it was for me very interesting because it reminded me of the early days of mobile phone filmmaking. The early 360 cameras were not really only invented for filmmaking, but they were also maybe thought of about it as a tool for web conferences, for instance, which eventually happened then. But I think it was a great way to think about, there's suddenly now a new 360 video camera, and there was not that much understanding of how you can work with this. Now, 6 or 8 years later, we've got, I think, some really great insights of how to work with some cinematic VR, or like what I call mobile cinematic VR, and the 360 videos. The idea for mobile cinematic VR came from me that most of these cameras are actually quite small. So there's, of course, again, there's some professional cameras which are very big, but there's also some small scale cameras which can produce really good work. And most of these cameras connect through an app. And so that was for me one of the ideas, this could be one of the futures of smartphone filmmaking. And so cinematic VR or 360 video cameras are, of course, I think also really interesting in a more, in a business context. So that's at film festivals, we have seen lots of 360 films. You've seen them in journalism, in broadcast. Some of the film festivals have sort of like, because the tech space is going so fast, moved on to sort of different ideas of volumetric and interactive. But I think for company training videos, virtual tours, 360 video cameras are always like a really fantastic tool to show a location, to show an environment. And I think that's what we learned also in the pandemic, that sometimes you can't really go to a space in person, but with a 360 camera, you can record an environment, and then you can put these videos on YouTube, on Facebook, on Vimeo, and of course there's also spatial sound, which is a really interesting opportunity to guide viewers through these different videos and really have an experience of being in that location. And so it is not always sometimes it's, of course, it would be more suitable if you could be in the location, but if you can't be, a 360 video is a fantastic way to do this. And it's also, I think, a really imaginative way to capture audiences, because depending on, of course, how you view these experiences, but if you've got a headset available, and lots of these headsets are now, the price point has significantly been reduced, it's also a great way to then, have a really like a good experience of the 360 videos.
Great. So, would you like to say something about your, upcoming projects that you are most excited of, or the new technologies that you want to incorporate in your filmmaking?
As always, I'm working on some documentary projects at the moment. I'm also exploring the LiDAR functionality in the smartphone, so which is a light detecting I'm also exploring the LiDAR application. And so the LiDAR was first introduced to do these light sensor detection things for measuring distances, or with a phone, or scanning various different objects. But I'm now incorporating this into documentary production. I think AI, of course, is a tool, or an asset that we sort of won't get around in the future anyhow. So I'm sort of very interested in exploring this at the moment. There's some colleagues that sort of say AI can even become a collaborator in some respects, and so I think we will see some really interesting developments. Lots of software applications will probably use AI without realizing in the future. So, but I think that is one of the interesting things about smartphone filmmaking, that it's always at the forefront of these developments, because everything these days is interconnected through your smartphone.
Yeah, true, very true. So that's a wonderful thing that you have highlighted today. And my next question is, as you say, the whole thing is not only just to change, but move to a greater pace and greater speed. So where do you see the future of smartphone filmmaking heading, especially in terms of now when you say there is lots of technological advancement and artistic possibilities also. So according to you, where this is heading?
Yeah, I mean, in the book Smartphone Filmmaking Theory and Practice, I say that there's these various different futures almost emerging. And so I think the key thing to remember that it's a global phenomenon. You've got smartphone film festivals all around the world. There's smartphone filmmakers in every country. And for me, it's becoming an original film form. And so what I always say is that not every story might be appropriate to be realized with a mobile device or smartphone, but if working with communities, capturing locations, or working in the domain of personal or first-person filmmaking, I think the smartphone should be really considered as a camera of choice. These mobile specificities, they are very much expressed through accessibility, mobility, and its intimate and immediate qualities. So these smartphone filmmaking specific characteristics and personal forms of crafting experiences contribute to new storytelling approaches. And I think I can be so bold now to say that these stylistic developments which emerge through smartphone filmmaking, so like for instance vertical video or some of these sort of collaborative processes in smartphone filmmaking, are now evolving into hybrid formats that resonate in other film forms. So what I'm trying to say is smartphone filmmaking will now influence the mainstream. And we've seen this in like lots of other, cultural domains happening. And so I think for me, it's again, like I said before, it's a rookie to pro approach. It's a really fantastic way to get into storytelling, but also it's a really fantastic way to produce stories if there isn't that many resources available. But also it's a really fantastic way for professionals to think about how you maybe spend some resources in a different way. And so I'm always most excited in a professional application of when you work with a smartphone in a way that another camera couldn't do the job. And so, I mean, of course, cameras are getting smaller and smaller, but still, like, sometimes with a smartphone, you can film in a very sophisticated way, in a handheld way. You can maybe film in environments where you can move a little bit faster with your smartphone. Of course, these days, if you work with a gimbal, there's some really great opportunities. And so yes, there is this diversity that it has the application to create more stories. And I think that is, for me, an important part of the future, that we've got more stories, we've got a better understanding of what we want to achieve and what the world is really about.
That's a great. Thank you so much for shedding the light on this. So, Max, my next and last question, as such, it's not the question, but now when we have discussed what are the things which are, tools, applications, the future of the smartphone filmmaking. Now, if I ask in some other opposite manner, that for the people, those who are just new or starting out in the smartphone filmmaking, what advice would you like to give them? Or is there any, the common pitfalls to avoid, that you should not do these, you cannot do these to make it more interesting? So what are that things that you would like to add on this?
In the book, Smartphone Filmmaking Theory and Practice, I interview a very well-known smartphone filmmaker, Conrad Mess. I think he is a filmmaker that won most awards internationally for his smartphone films. And what he said is, just press the red button, just get started. And so, of course, what that means is you just need to take the courage to get started with a smaller project. And I think Conrad West also talked about this in a way that friends are like, your best resource for this. And I think that is what we want to sort of create with MINA, that there's a bit of a community. Smartphone filmmakers are very open, and so as part of MINA, we also have a Facebook group, and it's really like an open forum for discussion. There's a few other smartphone film festivals which are really great. So like in Sydney, there's SF3. In Switzerland, there's Mobile Motion. In Bangladesh, there's a Community Digital Storytelling Festival. So, and it might be actually quite nice for you to look on our website, MINA, and we've listed there our festival partners. And so, whether you're in Dakar or whether you're in Dublin for the Smartphone Film Festival, or whether you're in Africa for the African International Smartphone Film Festival, there's various opportunities to connect to a community that I think is very open, that is very interested in your stories. And so I think that is one of the really, I think, great things about smartphone filmmaking. It doesn't matter that much of if you had your films and so many other festivals before, or like how many projects you've done. It's more about your ideas and more about what you can achieve. Most smartphone filmmakers, don't say you have to have that camera. There's, if you're a bit of a geek, you like to have the latest camera, latest smartphone, but you don't have to have it. And I think what I always say when people ask me which is the best camera to use for making a smartphone film, my answer is always the one that you get in your pocket.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much, Max. Thank you so much. So, Max, this is the wrapping up of our today's podcast. And thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Edpath Adventure podcast. And it's really been an absolute pleasure to have you here and especially dwell into this exciting world of smartphone filmmaking. So, your expertise and passion for this, creative transformation, I can say, with the transmedia storytelling. Is really, really, really enlightening for me also, as personally, as well as for the listeners, those who are, starting with the filmmaking for their personal as well as their professional use. So thank you and I think my listeners are also might enjoy these conversations and inspired with the the latest tools and techniques that you have shared in the smartphone technology. So thank you so much for being so generous, as well as sharing your each and every expertise to understand this.
Yeah, it was a joy. Thanks for having me. And yes, please make a smartphone film and submit it to the MINA Film Festival or any other of the other great film festivals that I've just mentioned. And we're looking forward to see your work.
Again, so for our listeners who want to learn more about Max works and get involved with the Mobile Innovations Network and Association. Be sure to like his profile and to, get connected with him on the LinkedIn as well as his own websites, that is a MINA.pro. And once again, Max, thank you so much for being with us today. And listeners, if you want to know more about the Edfar Tech Venture, so just go on to Edfar Tech Venture podcast page as well as the YouTube channel, where you could find the greatest people with their greatest reasons and something to learn from him. So this is all about today's podcast, and I hope you all will enjoy. So until the next episode, stay tuned and get inspired with the visionary tech leaders. Thank you so much for joining and connecting. Thank you so much.